It all started on a freezing Monday morning, when the parking lot behind Halden Technologies was silent except for the hum of the security lights and the slow crunch of footsteps on the frost-covered ground. That's when Thomas Reeve, a single dad and janitor who worked the graveyard shift at the same company, stood next to a brand-new silver Mercedes-Benz, staring down at its shining tires with a trembling hand holding a pocket knife. He didn't look like someone filled with rage or jealousy. He looked broken, like a man standing on the edge of despair, with nowhere left to turn. Within minutes, 4 tires were slashed, hissing air into the cold dawn like dying whispers. That car belonged to Victoria Halden, the CEO. In just a few hours, she was supposed to meet with international investors who could change the company's future. And by the time she discovered what happened, the entire building was already in chaos. Before we dive into the story, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because this is not a story about crime. It's a story about the kind of pain that hides behind quiet smiles. Thomas Reeve was not the kind of man anyone noticed. Every night, when the last employee left, he mopped the marble floors, emptied the trash cans, and scrubbed the fingerprints off glass doors until they gleamed under fluorescent light. He wore the same faded navy blue uniform every day, patched and stitched by his daughter, Lily, who was just 9 years old. She was his entire world. Her mother, Claire, had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving Thomas to raise her alone. Since then, life had been an uphill climb, bills piling up faster than paychecks, the weight of grief pressing down like a stone on his chest. But no matter how tired he was, every morning before school, he would braid Lily's hair, pack her lunch, and tell her, "We'll be okay, Peanut. We always find a way." What he didn't tell her was that their electricity was about to be cut off, his rent was overdue, and Lily's medicine for her chronic asthma cost more than he earned in a week. That week, everything seemed to fall apart at once. Lily had another severe asthma attack at night. Thomas had no money left to refill her inhaler prescription. The pharmacy refused to release it without payment, and when he called his insurance company, he was told his coverage had lapsed due to a missed premium. Desperate, he spent the next morning standing outside his manager's office, hoping for an advance on his paycheck. But the request was denied. Company policy, they said. When he tried explaining his situation, they cut him off with polite indifference. Later that day, while cleaning the executive floor, he overheard 2 executives mocking him quietly, laughing about the janitor who can't even afford his own kids' meds. Those words shattered something inside him. And then came the final blow, a letter taped to his locker that night, notice of termination. Effective immediately. No explanation, just the cold truth in black ink that he spent hours sitting on a bench outside the building that night. The letter crumpled in his fist, tears streaming silently down his face. He thought about Lily struggling to breathe, her small chest rising and falling, her frightened eyes looking up at him as he told her everything would be fine. He thought about the company that had chewed him up and spat him out, and the woman whose smiling face was plastered all over the building, Victoria Halden, the CEO, the woman everyone said had a heart of gold. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was pain, or maybe it was just a man's breaking point. But that's when he walked to the parking lot, saw her car glinting under the lights, and made a decision he would regret for the rest of his life. When Victoria found out what had happened, she was furious. The meeting was cancelled, the investors pulled out, and the story spread through the office like wildfire. Security footage quickly revealed the culprit, and within hours, Thomas was detained by police. But something unusual happened next. Victoria didn't press charges immediately. She demanded to meet him in person. The guards brought him into her office, still wearing his stained uniform. He expected to see rage. Instead, she asked one simple question: why? He didn't answer at first. But when she pressed again, the dam broke. He told her everything, about his daughter, the asthma, the insurance, the denial, the humiliation, the hunger, the sleepless nights. He didn't justify what he did. He just said, "I didn't know what else to do." For a long time, Victoria said nothing. But something in his words broke through the polished armor she wore every day. She had grown up poor herself. Her father had been a factory worker who died young, and her mother worked double shifts as a cleaner. Somewhere along the way, she had forgotten that struggle. She had built a life so far removed from it that she forgot how many people she employed lived it every day. After that meeting, Victoria did something no one expected. She paid for Lily's medical treatment in full, reinstated Thomas's job, and implemented a new employee welfare fund for emergency support. It was the first time in years that someone had seen Thomas as more than just the janitor. Months passed, and Thomas's life began to change. He didn't become rich, but he became stable. He worked hard, attended company training programs, and eventually became a facility supervisor. Lily's health improved, and Victoria often visited them quietly, bringing her books and small gifts. Over time, their friendship became a reminder that compassion can rewrite even the darkest stories. The day Lily turned 10, Victoria surprised her with a scholarship fund in her name, ensuring she would never have to struggle the way her father did, and as for that day in the parking lot, Thomas never forgot it. It was a scar in his memory, but also the start of something beautiful, the day one man's mistake led to an awakening in someone else's heart. The CEO whose tires he slashed became the woman who saved his daughter's life. Life has strange ways of teaching us lessons, sometimes through pain, sometimes through grace, and sometimes through both. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment letting us know what part moved you the most. Stories like this remind us that behind every act of anger, there's often a story of pain, and behind every story of pain, there's a chance for redemption. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Thomas Reeves' place? Would you have made the same mistake, or found another way?